Hello and welcome to my TED Talk. I'll be discussing the different factors that impacted and resulted from the rise of Germany as a European power between 1815 and 1914. To make this vast subject more simple to understand, I identified three main factors that both helped Germany rise and change the result of its growth and power. These are ideological developments, industrialization, and imperialism. Let's begin by discussing the most significant factor, ideological developments. Although there were emerging ideas of socialism, ideological developments in Germany primarily included conservatism and liberalism. The political potential of conservatism in Germany was much stronger than liberalism, causing Germany to never truly break away from traditional political ideologies until after World War I. Liberal ideas were unleashed around the mid-19th century, demanding ideas such as equality and freedom, although many of these ideals were sacrificed for the end goal of unification. European diplomacy prior to German unification was largely influenced by conservatism. Between 1814 and 1815, the Congress of Vienna, made up of aristocrats around Europe, was made to decide the fate of Napoleon Bonaparte, would cause lots of instability throughout Europe. The leader was Austria-Hungarian Clemens von Metternich, who helped shape the Congress of Vienna into a symbol of European conservatism. He famously said that, quote, "In Europe, democracy is a falsehood. I do not know where it will end, but it cannot end in a quiet age," which revealed his averseness towards more liberal governments such as the parliamentary system in the United Kingdom. The Congress of Vienna's strict implementation of conservatism ensured the split of the German states, thus preventing German unification. The Congress did this because German unification was seen as a threat to the overall stability of Europe. The conservative impact of Metternich first began to lose its strength after the revolutions in 1848. Otto von Bismarck of Prussia created a new conservatism, and unlike old conservatism, which oppressed liberalism, made a balance between conservatism and liberal demands, while still crushing socialist ideals. He implemented this new conservatism through a series of wars and social welfare policies that instilled nationalist sentiment among the German people to unify. A unified state was granted to make Germany into a stronger European power. The three wars of German unification were the Second War of Schleswig, the Austro-Prussian War, and the Franco-Prussian War. In 1864, the Second War of Schleswig was the second war over the Schleswig-Holstein question, regarding the rule of the different ethnicities in Schleswig and Holstein. Southern Schleswig was composed heavily of the German population, and Holstein was composed of almost all German people. In these two areas, there was also a heavy population of Danish and Austrian people, which made the conflict over the territories very threatening to the overall balance of Europe, since the Danish population opposed the unification of the two areas into a German confederation. The Danish had a clear defeat, while Austria and Prussia were still left to fight over the territories. This led to the Austro-Prussian War in 1866, also known as the 7 Weeks' War, which was concluded by the Treaty of Prague, fully transferring the problems of the Schleswig-Holstein question to Prussia and resulting in an Austrian loss. After this war, Prussia unified northern Germany with the creation of the North Germany Confederation. Finally, in the Franco-Prussian War of 1871, the southern German states became unified with the northern German states due to a growth in national sentiment among the German people against the French. These three wars demonstrated Bismarck's use of traditional cabinet diplomacy, in which agreements were made between the leaders of the states in the North German Confederation and different hereditary leaders from nations such as Bavaria. Although conservatism was much more apparent in his policies, Bismarck had to satisfy the large amount of liberal demands to ensure stability. Liberalism in Germany was first unleashed by the French July Revolution in 1830. The revolution helped liberals differentiate themselves from the progressive political movements. They stood for the sovereignty of the state and a separation of powers, a political idea first introduced by Montesquieu. Other liberal ideas were reflected in the Rheinische Zeitung, which was written between 1842 and 1843, stating liberal demands towards ideas of freedom and equality. Germans ended up earning the right to suffrage in the latter half of the 19th century. Bismarck was able to earn the support of the liberals, which significantly helped them unify the German states. Liberal values were met less and less as Germany became a more and more powerful state, though. The National Liberal Party in 1867 was a group of moderates that broke away from the progressives to prioritize nationalism, thus weakening the liberals. Bismarck earned the strong support of the group that contained both liberal and conservative ideals. In the early years after German unification, there was lots of reform towards a more liberal state. Restrictions and regulations were removed on trade, and there was a securing of freedom of the press in 1874. All these acts clearly expressed liberal values, yet after around a decade of unification, Bismarck turned to the liberals again by passing in 1879 a protective tariff, which opposed the National Liberal Party. This caused a split in the party and more polarized politics. Bismarck believed political parties should each have an enemy, thus the base of his new conservatism, which took an especially large rise in Germany between 1890 and 1918. Liberalism continued to decrease in influence, and as Hans-Jürgen Pohl said in his Journal of Contemporary History, quote, "The country never experienced in her political life, either on the old right, still less in the new, that coalescence of the forces of political conservatism and economic liberalism." This was clear proof of the persistence of conservatism in Germany prior to the beginning of World War I, regardless of the many liberal influences in that time period. Before I go on, I will address the unsuccessful emergence of socialism in Germany prior to 1914. Socialist ideas were popularized by Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels in the Communist Manifesto in 1848. This book introduced revolutionary ideas about class struggles and sparked the 1848 revolutions in Europe. Even Germany had an emergence of socialism with the political party called the Social Democrats. The Social Democrats were seen as a threat, so Bismarck declared them illegal and forbade their meetings and press, thus earning him a strong conservative majority. Bismarck implemented the carrot and stick, giving the German people a small sense of liberalism and socialism by implementing elections and a parliamentary system, yet actually having strong control over the people and the law. The second factor that helped Germany rise was industrialization. Germany definitely industrialized very late compared to the other European nations, such as France and the United Kingdom, although they did catch up by the 20th century. Germany's path towards industrialization began with the creation of a system of railroads. The railroads gave more job opportunities to people in rural regions and helped connect the German states into more of a nation. They also helped feed the supply and demand chain for temporary labor. A clear pattern that goes hand in hand with industrialization of the country's migration. To fully see how Germany grew as a nation, we will analyze what the migration patterns in Germany reflected about the overall industrialization of Germany. Beginning in the early 19th century, the migration rates were very low at around 3% in the factory, agriculture, and cottage industries. Also, over 50% of the immigrants came for agricultural labor. The low percentage of immigrants and the high percentage of immigrants coming for agricultural labor shows how Germany industrialized much later than the other nations in Europe. While Germany was still growing its rural population, the United Kingdom's rural population was on a massive decline amidst mass urbanization. Migration in Germany only increased in the latter half of the 19th century when the first industrialization was already over. This growth in migration shows that Germany finally began to industrialize, although most migrants were still immigrating to the agricultural sector. The delayed industrialization of Germany was nevertheless quite rapid. Technology and factories became very modern and even more advanced than English industry. The Industrial Revolution also caused the emergence of the bourgeoisie, who fully reflected the ideas of economic liberalism. Although Germany became extremely technologically advanced in the late 19th century, it still struggled to urbanize its largely rural population because of its backwards pre-industrial sector. The last factor involving the rise of Germany was imperialism. Germany sought to become an imperial power, although because of their later unification, it was harder to match the British and French empires in size. Their empire formed over the late 19th century and ended with the Treaty of Versailles after World War I. Germany already had a tradition in foreign seaborne trade, beginning with the Hanseatic League, which was an alliance of guilds that monopolized the trade along the northern European coast. They saw colonial acquisitions as an indication of nationhood. In the early 1880s, Germany joined the scramble for Africa, gaining colonies such as modern-day Ghana and Togo. They did not actually profit from these colonies, but instead used them as an overspill for German settlers. The German Empire was short-lived, yet also ruled in a much different manner than other European powers. They did not instate German culture in their colonies to prevent the amount of literate natives. This made Germany's impact in the world much less significant than Britain's and France's. Now, to visualize Germany's rise as an imperial power, look at this map of all territories that the United Kingdom and Germany owned between 1815 and 1848. As you can see, the British had an early start on imperialism. After 1848 until 1914, when World War I began, Germany was able to quickly gain territories around the world, even participating in the scramble for Africa. However, as the map clearly shows, the British Empire was still colossal compared to Germany's. Because Germany was so late to get getting colonial acquisitions, Bismarck found other ways to have Germany recognized as a strong power in Europe. Between 1884 and 1885, Bismarck led the Berlin Conference in response to the rivalry between France and the United Kingdom. The conference passed policies to regulate the acquisitions of African colonies. It also protected free trade along the Congo River. This ensured that there was strong German influence on international policies. This is, in a way, showed how Bismarck's policies lean more to the conservative side. He created a series of alliances between all the European nations similar to the alliances that Metternich created at the Congress of Vienna. The big takeaways from this TED Talk include the fact that a rise in nationalism was a large catalyst of German unification and thus German rise. Without nationalism from liberal Germans, the nation would never have been able to unify. Another takeaway is that Otto von Bismarck was key to Germany's success in the latter half of the 19th century. He initiated a new type of conservatism that was very similar to traditional institutions, all while giving the German public a feeling that more liberal demands were met. German industrialization was very helpful towards its rise of power, although it was very delayed because the German states unified so late in the 19th century. This industrialization became more advanced than any other nation, yet the pre-industrial sectors such as agriculture were still backwards and undeveloped. Lastly, Germany played a large role in controlling international relations to make up for its lack of colonial acquisitions, compared to much older and more stable nations like the United Kingdom. Germany may have not had a cultural impact on the colonies, although their role in international relations can be credited to the horrors of World War I. The system of alliances that Bismarck made with his new conservatism caused the minor Balkan crisis to spark a worldwide conflict between all the main powers. Thanks for watching.